The Falcons were ranked 8th overall by PFF heading into 2025. The only change that was made to our offensive line moving from 2024 to 2025 is losing our center Drew Dalman, and now we're inserting Ryan Neuzil. Jeff, do you think that our offensive line will be in a top 10 unit again in 2025?
Oh. By the way, before I even start, the shout out to Ryan Neuzil. He got married, I guess, over the weekend or over the week or whatever it's been, or he got married today, whatever it was. So shout out to him for that. I don't know, when you look across and by the way, I'm not a big fan of PFF. I know enough former players and I've listened to enough other former players that talk about how PFF doesn't know what they're talking about when it comes to grading out different things. They don't know some of the nuances. And so, I'm not a big PFF fan, right? But, looking at how they have kind of everything stacked out, they list Jake Matthews as the 15th best tackle in the league. They list Bergeron as the 19th best guard. Neuzil is the 31st best center out of 40 on rosters. Lindstrom is the number one guard, which I don't think anybody can argue with. And then they have McGary listed as the 29th best tackle out of the 81 on NFL rosters. And so when you look at that, it should be a decent unit. I think Bergeron has been a guy that was a breath of fresh air last year. He was almost an instant upgrade there at left tackle. Obviously, the concern for me is going to be Ryan Neuzil. And the biggest reason for me is 7 starts last year. Wasn't all that great. He was fine. He wasn't great. He wasn't elite. But in those 7 starts, he still led the NFL in penalties for a center. A lot of grabbing, a lot of holding. And when you've got you've got 2 of the top 20 guards bookending you, right? Like you have a lot of help coming from that inside. And yet you still getting called for grabbing and holding because you're not fast enough. Your feet don't move quick enough. You don't have a lot of what it takes. Your punch isn't good enough. That is, and this isn't a secret. We've talked about this kind of repeatedly early on this podcast. I'm really worried about that, especially with a rookie quarterback. There are 2 things that really worry me. One, this offensive line isn't necessarily built for a left-handed quarterback. Having Kaleb McGary as your blindside tackle should scare the shit out of just about everybody. This is a guy that has not played a blindside tackle since his days in school at Washington. And there's a reason that most left tackles in college come into the NFL and are right tackles. Some of them make the switch and make the jump over to left. McGary was never going to be good enough to be a blindside tackle in the league. And so for me, that's really scary. What works out well, though, is the fact that Lindstrom now becomes a blindside guard, right? Like that works out really well for him. Jake Matthews, this works out well for him, kind of being older now. He's probably only has a couple more years, not having to worry about the blindside stuff anymore. It helps him out. I worry again, the guy that's going to touch the ball every single play is not very good. And the guy that's protecting your backside, again, not very good. And so for me, I worry about those things. It'll be really up to how this, can the offensive coaches put this offensive line in a great situation to be successful? That to me is what it comes down to. That to me is what is going to be paramount to this. Can Zach Robinson and his staff understand what they have up front and utilize those guys' strengths to the best of their ability and put them in situations to win every single snap? That will determine how good this offensive line is, not necessarily how good they actually are.
Couldn't agree more. And if you look at the 101 offensive linemen that made eight or more starts last year, Jeff, Neuzil had the 11th most penalties. So if you just take penalties and divide it over games started, like he had the 11th highest rate, which kind of speaks to the stat you were talking about for centers. So that is a concern.
And he didn't even play half the year.
Exactly.
That's a concern.
Exactly. If I'm Tampa Bay, if I'm Todd Bowles, Jeff, I'm getting big Vita Vea, throwing him directly over Neuzil and challenging him right then and there. Like, having a good center is key, especially for a rookie quarterback who, by the way, Penix hasn't even taken a snap from Neuzil in a live game because by the time Penix was starting, Dalman was back. So that is a huge risk factor to me. The other risk factor you already talked about, Kaleb McGary. When he became the blindside tackle starting week 16 against the Giants, all of a sudden we're getting free rushers going at Penix. If you need any evidence of how awful McGary looked, look no further than the Panthers game. Jadeveon Clowney has been a so-so starter in the NFL. Like he might have had moments where he's a Pro Bowler or whatever. Like he has skills. He knows how to rush the passer. But we're not talking about Myles Garrett here. Well, in week 18, he sure looked like Myles Garrett. He was ripping, going for Penix any shot he got, and I was legitimately concerned about Penix. So if I'm the Falcons, I want to be very careful about when there's a big defensive tackle on the other side, like a Vita Vea, and making sure that we get appropriate help to help Neuzil out. And 2, you talked about Lindstrom protecting the blind side. That's all great, but if we line up the defensive end on the outside, I want to make sure that Charlie Warner, more times or not, is on the side of McGary chipping away at the defensive end. We can't. Matthews is going to be fine at left tackle, especially if he's not going to be the blindside tackle. He is a-okay. He doesn't need any chips or anything like that. He could handle that all the way through. Like more times than not, I need Warner on that side, Jeff, and we'll see what happens. But I don't. If you ask me right now, would they finish top 10? I just don't have confidence in McGary. My answer is no.
Agreed. And no, to me, that doesn't mean that this team can't make the playoffs. That doesn't mean that this team can't achieve all of its goals. It just means to me that this offensive line takes a step back, which, again, shouldn't shock anybody given the makeup of this offensive line.
Yeah, and cool. On a brighter note, Jeff, let's give a shout out to Chris Lindstrom. On top of being PFF's number 1 guard, he also has made the Pro Bowl 3 straight years. He's been second team All-Pro 3 straight years. I hope that he finally gets the recognition that he deserves and gets that first team All-Pro in 2025. And Jake Matthews, you're going to like this one, Jeff. He's had 178 consecutive starts in the NFL in the regular season. If you count playoffs, that's 183. If he, knock on wood, starts the entire 2025 regular season, he would have broken the record for consecutive starts at left tackle. So shame on us for him only having 1 Pro Bowl appearance and not putting him in more relevant games, because he's been an anchor for us since we drafted him in 2014. But hopefully with him being a quote-unquote non-blindside tackle, maybe he can start getting more recognition too, because I think he'll anchor that that left side of the line pretty well in 2025.
Yeah, for sure. I completely agree.
And if you look at all the other tackles taken, Jeff, in that 2014 draft, Taylor Lewan, I think Greg Robinson or whatever, all those guys are gone. Our guy's going, man. Like it's so cool to see him keep doing his thing. So we'll see what happens there. Speaking of NFL drafts, the last topic of the day